Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today for the Untangle 101 webinar series. Today we'll be going over NG Firewall, our platform, our network security platform, and how it can be used for state and local governments. My name is Shannon Bonfiglio. I'm part of the marketing team here at Untangle, and I'll be your host today. I also have with us Chad McNaughton. He's one of our sales engineers, and he'll be taking us through this presentation and giving us a demonstration of our NG Firewall product. Just a few housekeeping rules before I pass it over to Chad. Please be sure you're selecting the correct audio preference. On the right-hand side, you'll see the options to use either your computer sound or a telephone. If you do select to use your computer speakers, please ensure that you have a strong internet connection so that you don't miss anything that's said. If you decide to use the telephone, you will need to use the dial code that is provided. As always, we have a few members on hand to help answer any questions, so please submit any questions you may have in the questions box on the right-hand side. If we don't get to your question, or if you have a very specific question about your network setup, please email us, sales@untangle.com or support@untangle.com, and we'll be able to help you better there. Again, as always, these webinars are recorded, so you'll be able to rewatch or share this webinar later on. It'll be posted on the Untangle YouTube channel within 24 hours after this event has ended. And I believe that's all. So Chad, if you want to get started.
All right, thanks, Shannon. Thanks, everyone. As Shannon said, this is going to be an Untangle 101. We're doing an intro to government here. This is, not going to be a deep dive into any of the apps, that kind of stuff. We'll just go over the interface, show you what the apps and the command center centralized management look like. Keep in mind, this is not going to be a super long demo, so you might want to stick around till the end because we are actually going to give away an Amazon gift card here before we wrap up. We'll pick an attendee at random as long as you're in the meeting. I'll let Shannon do that because I don't want to seem biased. I don't know if I would, but still. So on my screen here, you can just see some of the basic cybersecurity risks that government faces. Obviously government sector remains a top target for breaches. Cyber espionage and privilege misuse are the top reasons for breaches. And then third-party vendor risks are always going up, it seems like, and are becoming more and more visible. There's a lot of data available here. I'm going to leave this slide up for a bit. You can see some of our sources there on the bottom right, the Identity Theft Resource Center and Verizon's Data Breach Investigation Report. But as you can see on the bottom right, 70% of federal agencies have been breached, which is pretty drastic to me. So this is all exponentially increasing every year, it seems like. And when you talk about even small town government, city hall, things like that, they often don't have the resources to protect themselves. As I said, smaller governments that we sometimes don't consider, like a small city hall, a small library, something like that, you're going to lack resources, expertise even, to address all of these threats, and you're subject to compliance with multiple regulation standards. Anyone who's ever dealt with something like CJIS or NIST standards, HIPAA compliance, there's a lot going on. There's a lot of standards to meet, and Untangle can help with all of that. Over here on the right, you can see, last year the city of Atlanta was breached. It cost them $2.7 million and shut down all city business. They were doing water bill payments on pen and paper for a while. 19 government agencies disclosed breaches occurred due to click-to-gov, impacting 2,300 agencies in 35 states. And the average cost of a data breach in the public sector was over $2 million. So as I said, this is getting pretty scary. Obviously, these numbers keep increasing. So, specifically for these small local governments like we're talking about, we would want to introduce Untangle. This is a comprehensive network security solution for small to medium-sized businesses and government agencies. It's quick and easy to deploy, quick and easy to manage, and it's going to help you protect the business, the organization, and the reputation of the organization. In general, it's a low-cost subscription-based software solution built to fit government budgets. So it can save costs by leveraging your existing hardware, or you can choose turnkey appliance, buy a piece of hardware from us. It's already got Untangle installed, which makes things a little easier to plug and play when you set something like Untangle up and deploy it. We do offer multiple channels of support. Untangle will provide proactive, actionable alerts and notifications with historical reports that can go up to a year. We do offer advanced support from our team here in Colorado if you pay for our live support subscription. And pretty seamless transparency from start to finish with the reporting, all this deep packet inspection, and cloud management. So hopefully you'll be able to protect, control, and monitor your business critical networks a little easier, a little cheaper, a little more seamlessly. Untangle has quite a few different products. Let's go talk about a few of these here. The NG Firewall product is our basic software platform for deploying these network-based security and policy applications. So if you download Untangle, you get the free trial. If you don't subscribe to any of those licenses, it reverts to our free package and you have Untangle free. All of our apps inspect traffic simultaneously and enforce rules, mostly in a top-down order. They do share an admin panel, database, and reporting. Inspecting traffic simultaneously is an interesting thing that we'll talk about more later. And the reports in Untangle are pretty interesting now. We do offer live custom reports. We've enabled quicker, easier drill down into really any aspect of traffic and to provide compliance audits for you. So one of the big things we changed here in a recent version update was the ease of drilling down into specific information in our reports, which we'll show you here on our server in just a few minutes. So when we talk about Untangle's apps, we basically break these up into 6 categories that you can see here. Everything from firewall and intrusion prevention, down to leveraging authentication with directory connector, creating policies. Policies we say a lot in a couple of different ways. When we talk about policy manager, we're talking about a group of apps for a different group of people, a different group of devices, etc. So everything you see here is available in our complete package, which we'll be looking at on my demo server, but all these paid apps are also available individually. So maintaining compliance and control is a pretty big deal these days. We offer web content filtering with over 500 million sites in over 140 categories in 200 languages. This comes from a big vendor out here in Colorado. We offer access control and identification with authentication of users and their devices, as well as virus blocking to protect against emerging threats. We use part of our cloud infrastructure for that. And as I said, we also offer a lot of different policy enforcement for HTTPS and SSL traffic, a couple of different ways to do that. And then audit reports for regulators if you need deep dives. As I said, we can keep up to a year of information locally, provided you have the storage space for that on the box. Open Wi-Fi is also a pretty common offering in the public sector, whether it's a little city hall, a library, etc. Untangle will let you gain visibility and control over devices that are connecting to the network through our captive portal. We can show you that here on my demo server, but it'll present a splash page that people have to agree to terms on, sign into if you want them to. That way we can separate mobile devices to different policies for different filtering, different application rules. We can authenticate those with Radius, Active Directory, Google, Facebook, or Microsoft. So there are quite a few ways to deploy Untangle nowadays. Untangle is a piece of software that is installed on a piece of hardware, whether you buy one from us or use your own. Spare hardware, custom hardware based on our specs, whatever. You can also run it in a virtual environment or in the public cloud using Amazon Web Services or Microsoft Azure. So this is basically a hybrid cloud product. As I said, it's cloud managed, but it is an on-premise gateway that's powered by cloud intelligence, things like Scout IQ to look for emerging threats, virus telemetry aggregation in the cloud. We'll talk about that more later. Virtual pipelining is what I mentioned here when Untangle's applications inspect traffic simultaneously. Instead of using proxy chaining, which can be really inefficient, traffic coming through in Untangle is inspected by all of our apps simultaneously. So this is what virtual pipelining offers. It removes that latency. The analogy I use in pre-sales demos is that virtual pipelining is more of a dog pile method, while proxy chaining is more of an assembly line method. So the assembly line obviously takes longer to get from A to B. when we have a packet of information show up, all of our apps pile on simultaneously and inspect it. So due to virtual pipelining and running Debian Linux, this is giving us a lighter hardware footprint. So Untangle can be run on smaller, cheaper hardware or virtual specs, whether that hardware is ours or yours. And then I did mention the public cloud deployments in AWS or Azure. We do offer two different types of licensing, whichever one you're going to use. They both offer links to the cloud infrastructure stores. You can look at data plans and all that stuff on our website. Since I've mentioned Scout IQ 4 times in the last minute, let's talk about it for just a second. This is part of our cloud infrastructure. This is an Untangle product that aggregates anonymous telemetry data from all the Untangles worldwide that connect to it. So you can see just a little snapshot of our map there. It went all war games on us for a second, but those are basically sessions of Untangles around the world sharing information and downloading information to and from Scout IQ. So we're identifying threats we see in the wild, and this is included at no additional cost in our virus blocker. You can see some screen grabs of the statistics it offers you there as well. This is on the untangle.com site. So it'll show you some top detections, detection methods. The definitions that it shows are very interesting because you can actually see, names of malware, confidence levels, how sure we are that it's malware. So that's a big part of our cloud infrastructure, Scout IQ. The other part of our cloud infrastructure is Command Center. This is what we call our cloud-based centralized management. So all your Untangle deployments will be available here on a single pane. This is actually free with our NG Firewall Complete package. This is also integrated with Malwarebytes now for endpoint visibility protection. If you happen to use Malwarebytes Business, or if you don't use anything, Malwarebytes Business is a great choice now if you're using Untangle because we integrate with them through our cloud in Command Center. This is a great way to easily manage multi-site deployments without any additional hardware. Untangle is generally focused on small to medium businesses, small to medium government organizations, nonprofits, etc. So we're hoping we can reduce, your management overhead, some of those associated costs with driving to a remote site, having extra hardware, etc. You're able to get alerting, threat histories, audit logs across all your sites here on a single pane where you can manage licensing, software updates, backups. You can actually reboot and untangle from the cloud now. Please don't do that as a troubleshooting step. Remember, it's Linux. We don't reboot to troubleshoot. You can also clone, edit, and push policies across your fleet of devices, which is a really interesting option that I'll show you here in our demo. As I said, we're reducing overhead and we're keeping appliances in sync here through the cloud as you make changes. You're able to invite users to Command Center with different access privileges. So we have different user roles in Command Center. And it's giving you endpoint visibility with the Malwarebytes integration, allowing you to run virus scans from the cloud. And you can actually see an endpoint sessions on the web through Command Center without actually remoting into the Untangle that it's passing through. We also offer zero-touch provisioning through Command Center that helps you easily configure appliances remotely. Command Center is honestly very ideal for MSPs. When you're managing multiple clients, it just doesn't matter where they are geographically anymore because they're all connected here through Command Center. I did mention briefly that we offer a line of appliances that are pre-installed with Untangle. This is what they look like. On the left, you see our little kind of home office, small to medium business branch office, the X series. Those are really cool little boxes. I have the U50XW at my house, which I really like. But we do go all the way up to about 3,000 devices on the far right. So I'm going to hop out of the slide deck here real quick and jump over to my demo server, and we'll walk through our interface, dashboard, reports, things like that. Okay, so we're on demo.untangle.com here. You can all jump on anytime, play around. It should automatically take you into the dashboard here, which is basically still set to defaults. So you can kind of expect your Untangle to look like this, more or less, out of the box if you run our recommended apps during the install wizard. You can see this one actually runs in Amazon Web Services. This is a cloud server. It's doing geolocation here on the map. We're seeing some server metrics. I mentioned this is Linux Debian, so it will, consume a lot of memory pretty much at all times. You can see I don't have a lot going on here on my device, so less than 700 sessions, but we're at about 70% memory consumption. That's, perfectly normal. So when we talk about custom hardware, things like that, we don't have any recommendations on custom third-party hardware, but my recommendation is always, give it as much memory as you can. It's Linux Debian. It's going to eat all the RAM you can feed it. So this is a very customizable dashboard. If you prefer different widgets than we put here by default, you can come to the settings button and change these around, turn these off, delete them. If you prefer to add a different widget, maybe I want to see the top websites being visited. Web Filter is the app that will tell me that, top sites by request. So I'm going to add that. It's going to throw it down here at the bottom. So I could reorder that if I wanted to, drag it up to the top. Maybe I don't want to scroll all the time. I mentioned also in the deck that we offer quick drill down conditions. You can see those here. If you have usernames, we can just change these widgets to a specific username or specific client IP, specific policy, maybe see what all the employees are doing right now or the students, etc. I also like to point out that these actually max out at a day of information. So if you need a deeper dive beyond 24 hours, you can come over here to the reports viewer, or you could say, I just need to go straight to this report. So you click the widget and you click open in reports. All these reports are customizable. There is a lot going on in Untangle reporting. You may have seen there's about 400 reports in there. As I said, they are customizable. If you click settings up here, you can really turn a report into anything you need it to be and then save it as a new one. This can also be added, removed to or from your dashboard here, or downloaded as a PNG file if someone wants a quick peek at information. Maybe they don't want this specific information because they don't care about this big chunk of gray that says others. So we click over here in the legend and we remove irrelevant stuff. So this looks a little bit more interesting, right? Now we see that people are on Amazon and Urban Dictionary for some reason. So if we wanted to, we could add a condition here. The same buttons exist, and you'll notice the time period lets you go back as far as you need to. So as I said, Untangle's reporting is pretty robust. You'll notice we do have a search bar down here as well. If you're just looking for username reports, you can just start typing and it'll show you all the apps that can show username reports. So that's Untangle's dashboard and reports. I'm going to touch real briefly on the config menu here just because it's one of our UIs and I like to explain a couple of things here. This is obviously, if we click on network here, you can see this is going to be a pretty deep dive. We're not going to touch on a lot of this stuff, but this is where a lot of the layer 3 options live. If we're installed as a router or in transparent bridge mode, some of these options will be more or less useful. What I want to point out is that this is also where Untangle's bypass rules live. This is the one I always touch on because this is a very important aspect of Untangle's config when it comes to licensing subscriptions. Untangle licenses by unique IP address devices. These rules here actually let you remove devices from that licensing. So as you can see, we have a rule for voice over IP traffic. These are built in. You'll see these by default. We don't feel you normally need to filter VoIP traffic, so we don't want you to have to pay for that by default. So these are bypassed. So keep that in mind when you start looking into Untangle. If we're giving you price quotes, you're looking at our website on pricing. When it says up to 25 devices, up to 75 devices, we can use bypass rules to help you keep that to the proper 75 devices and not just everything on the network like printers and security cameras. So as I said, there's a lot to go over on the config menu. Some of the important stuff is this is where alerts live under events. This is also where you can set up a local directory. Really small organizations in general don't use something like authentication from a directory service like Active Directory. Untangle's a pretty small business too. We don't leverage Active Directory. We actually use Google. But if you don't use anything and you prefer to see usernames, or if you're under compliance standards that require usernames and reports, you can actually add those here in Untangle locally. If you need guest accounts that expire, for example, you can create those here as well. Then we can also leverage that through the captive portal if we need to. So this is the Untangle apps menu. This is our complete package. Every app we have is installed here. One quick caveat, this is a demo server, so you do see a few redundant applications. Things like Spam Blocker Lite here won't be installed when you have the full version. It will be overwritten. Same with Application Control Lite that you see there. As I said before, Untangle is a pretty modular system. Every app that you see here is either free or available to purchase individually. But when we talk about things like content filtering, offering public Wi-Fi, those almost always entail our complete package, because once you start pricing 2 to 3 to 4 apps, it just makes more sense to switch to the package. Our site will actually tell you that, hey, switch to the package and save $1,000. So I do want to touch on an app or two. I mentioned content filtering. It's 2019. Globally, we're averaging about 70-75% total HTTPS encryption on the internet, which is a great thing for all of us as internet users. But it does make visibility into content more complicated. So with Untangle's SSL inspector here, we're able to download the root certificate from Untangle to a device, and that makes us a man-in-the-middle deep packet inspector. And we're able to decrypt things like Google traffic. So you can add a rule here to decrypt just about anything. These are built in as some of these are really popular, important services that we need to see into. Once we are decrypting traffic, I think one of the most overlooked aspects of that is allowing something like Virus Blocker to step in and scan HTTP. This is running the Bitdefender antivirus engine. And obviously no app in the world can see into HTTPS. This is one of the most important reasons to me personally to decrypt HTTPS to HTTP. I do a lot of this at home where I run Untangle. Decrypting more traffic allows me to scan more files that are downloaded to my network. There have been a lot of breaches lately where someone's clicked on an email attachment and it's sent them ransomware. Something like this can help prevent that. So keep in mind when we talk about phishing and malware, we'll show you some options in WebFilter as well. But phishing specifically and a lot of ransomware and malware still require end user interaction. So someone somewhere has to click something, whether or not it's an attachment or a link in an email. If you're using a mail server, Untangle can scan your SMTP mail as well. But if you use something like Office 365 or Gmail, we don't see that traffic. Microsoft and Google scan that for you, but we can still scan those attachments if they get downloaded. So just keep that in mind. We do our best to take users out of the equation. I don't imagine it's a newsflash to anyone, but end users are typically still the problem. People like to click on things. So a big part of antivirus in any organization, I feel like, needs to be user education. But something like Untangle at the gateway shouldn't replace your endpoint antivirus like Malwarebytes, but it's a good complement to it, and it should hopefully step in before those kinds of things are needed. Anyway, you may notice we do a Bitdefender cloud scan, and then also this is where the Untangle Scout IQ cloud scan is enabled. So I mentioned malware and phishing. I want to touch on WebFilter here real fast. WebFilter is very interesting because, as I said, when we decrypt traffic, it gives us lots of very interesting information. I could, if I wanted to, come into WebFilter over here and see into something like query events. And so now I can see what people are Googling because I'm decrypting traffic from Google. We saw that rule in SSL Inspector. So as I said, this requires our root certificate to be deployed to them. We don't do that very often on public Wi-Fi anymore due to the nature of mobile devices. But even if I weren't decrypting this, I could still block it in WebFilter for the most part because we also do SNI filtering. So on WebFilter's Advanced tab, you'll see these boxes checked. I use all three at home, and this is how I do things like block pornography on mobile devices on Wi-Fi. When we're decrypting Google, like you're seeing those queries, we're also able to enforce safe searching, which can be a really handy thing in a lot of different organizations. In the slide deck earlier, we mentioned that there are over 500 million URLs categorized here. This is the Zavello database. It's a really big database, obviously, and it's hosted in their cloud, which is handy to me because it's not something installed on your server locally that you have to keep up with and maintain or prune. Zavello does that for us. You may see a lot of things here blocked by default. We do block things like anonymizers you saw at the top. That's a proxy site. If you just start typing in a category or a description, you'll see we block pornography. Anonymizer is someone trying to get around your Untangle, going to a site like stealthy.co. Stealthy is a very popular proxy site. Getting to the landing page is not a hard thing to do, though. You can get there. But if we tried to go around it, you would see a block page. So if I were to go to Stealthy here in my browser, I could get to stealthy.co, even though I'm behind my Untangle where I'm blocking proxies. But as soon as I click web proxy up here, you'll see that I can't go there because that is not excellent. So that's the block page, and that's what they would see there trying to go to one of these sites. So even if that hadn't worked, that site still would have been blocked because it's blacklisted right here with the word web proxy. So we use syntax matching here. It's called glob matching. So you can wildcard things without putting the entire URL or phrase in, URI information even. If I wanted to, for example, I could block the entire internet with a rule like this. Asterisk, period, asterisk. Will block every URL on Earth. That's a very drastic thing to do, obviously, but some organizations want to block everything and then allow employees, users to the 3-4 sites that they need for work. So we can do that if we need to. So that's your blacklist. This is your whitelist. If you happen to be coming from another content filter, if you can export your blacklist and whitelist as a JSON file, we can import those directly into Untangle here. Now we also offer some rules right here on the web filter for some quick, I call them inclusions, exclusions. This is basically just a block or pass. But if, for example, we're in our teachers policy where we block social networking and one teacher, one employee, whoever it is, needs access to that, we can say username is jsmith2. They have access to this category of websites or this mobile application. So as I said, it's a simple block or pass, but it's a real quick, easy thing to do here without creating a whole separate policy. The only other thing I wanted to point out real quick, obviously we do have a few different flavors of VPN here. You'll see, WAN balancing failover. This is still, basically more than a next-gen firewall. It's something more like a UTM device since we do all of this here in one box. The only other thing I really wanted to touch on the apps here right quick was just the kind of differentiation between web filter and application control, since we've mentioned public Wi-Fi a couple of times. And then we'll see if we've got any questions we can answer. Web filter, which we were just looking at, only cares about traffic in a browser, a URL. So that's a really distinct difference from application control because all it cares about are these mobile application signatures. You can see we have about 2,000 of them in here. And as long as you see an app signature in here, keep in mind that that's leveraged now throughout Untangle. So web filter can see that, bandwidth control can see that, which means we can block it, pass it, tar pit it, or throttle it or prioritize it for different users and different devices. A quick tip from me is punch in something like Facebook and take a look at all these different signatures. The actual mobile app lives right here. So maybe I want to report on who's using it, but I don't want to block it necessarily. If I wanted to, I could block just the events and messaging and video for Facebook. And maybe Farmville as well. Why not? So keep in mind, if I didn't want to block those, I could just throttle them. Untangle can throttle traffic down to as low as 0.1%, whether it's bypassed or being filtered. So we have a lot of options for mobile devices as well. These are apps on phones, tablets, sometimes laptops, especially things like Chromebooks when they download a lot of apps from something like the Google Play Store. We'll see those apps here. Google's another good example. They have more than a dozen signatures for different apps, APIs. Google Earth lives by itself here. I like to highlight this one too. You'll notice this is spelled Googurth. A lot of these are spelled kind of strange. I tend to copy and paste them here into my bandwidth control rule or my web filtering rule, whatever I need. So you see there's a ton of social networking available here, about 100. And something as simple as Instagram, you'll notice there is spelled wrong. It's Instagram. So I usually copy and paste these into rules when I need to apply them. There's a rules tab over here where we have a few rules that are default. If you need to just tar pit all proxy apps, we would do that. I will back up a second and explain tar pitting just in case. Someone probably noticed this here and asked it already. I didn't look. You notice this is either or. The actual reason that I would tar pit something instead of blocking it would be for something like a proxy app. If I saw something like UltraSurf being used on my network in my reports, that would greatly concern me. Obviously, that's a very savvy user. UltraSurf is a pretty interesting application. It's very smart on its own. It was created to get around what they call the Great Firewall of the Republic of China. So if we allow it to connect, it's probably going to get around and untangle. So when you block UltraSurf, to be blunt, you're only going to make it mad. What the block does is it answers UltraSurf's request with a request deny response from the Untangle. We're blocking you. Your request is denied. When that happens, UltraSurf's TCP connection is reset, and it sees all that happen. And like I said, it gets mad, and it tries other connection protocols until it connects. So we would prefer to tar pit that app because when it sends its request, Untangle never sends a response. We don't say request denied. So we're not technically blocking it because that would reset their connection. We're actually just not answering. So their traffic kind of goes out into a void. Their app never loads, but they never know they're being blocked. So it's a really slick solution. As you saw, there is a rule here to just tar pit all of them. We do have about 20 categorized as proxy, but if that's a problem on your network, I would actually recommend typing in VPN right there. You see that doubles the list, triples it. So that's kind of just a basic breakdown on a few apps here. You can see we do offer a lot. It's way more than we can go over here in 30, 40 minutes. I did want to check real quick, Shannon, do we have any questions hanging out there that we can answer real quick while we're on the server?
Yeah, you had mentioned throttling bypass traffic, and someone was wondering how that works.
All right, I love an easy question. So when we bypass traffic, that makes it eligible for quality of service. So you'll see VoIP built in, like I said. So if you go to Config Network Advanced, you'll see a QoS tab. This is where you should enable quality of service. It's going to ask you for your up and down speeds from your WANs. I'm at home here where I do about 150 down, about 50 up, 40 up. So my tip to you is to lowball this a little bit. So I do 150 down, so I'm going to do 140 times 1,000 kilobits per second. And then since I do 50 up, I'm going to do, let's say 35. Once those are set, Untangle understands the prioritization that it works with. So when we come to QoS rules, you'll see built-in rules for VoIP. They're set to very high. So by default, we're trying to not filter your VoIP, but also give it a very high priority. So this is where you create those traffic rules. So it would meet one of these layer 3 conditions, addresses, interfaces, etc. And then priority is whatever you choose here. So I say throttle a lot. We don't use that word technically here. Limited severely is what I call throttled to death. We can go as low as 0.1%. Those priorities actually live right here. So if you want to change these, this is where you can do that. These are the same priorities that we use for bandwidth control. So bypassed traffic that's shaped here, quality of service. Traffic that we're filtering gets shaped in bandwidth control. What a bypass rule is technically doing is just putting a ceiling on a packet's traffic. It never goes up into layer 7 where it hits these apps. So that's why it doesn't count on your license anymore and why we can't use bandwidth control. But we can still shape it there with QoS. The end. Yeah.
Great. I think that helped answer a few of those questions. Cool. There was a question on the hardware and purchasing those. If you wanted to maybe hop over to the website to show where everything is.
So on our website, untangle.com, if you hover over Get Untangle, you can click Buy Online. You can do your own quotes here. You can see all of our pricing. This is one of my favorite things Untangle does, honestly. I don't love having to talk to 20 people to find out what something costs. But keep in mind, this is retail. So if you wanted to, I could come over here and say, well, I want to buy a U50 with a complete package for up to 50, and I want it for 5 whole years. So you can get quick little quotes. You know, if you want to add live support, any professional services, you can see all that stuff here. So that's just under Get Untangle. This is actually a good segue because the last thing I wanted to touch on here real quick was Command Center. So if I were to click right here under my account, I will be taken to Command Center. This is the centralized management I talked about here pretty extensively over the demo. So if we log in here, you'll see you'll see my credit card is expired. That's good to know. This is the demo account that we use. So if I click on my dashboard here, you'll see, as I was saying earlier, this single pane of glass showing where my boxes are geographically, showing alerts across all devices. If I click on one of these, we'll get some details. This device went offline. That's actually a very good example of a nice alert we have in the cloud now. So even if a device goes offline, you know, you don't have to wait for that device to come back online to get an alert. You know, Command Center can see a WAN disconnect now. So these are not quite as customizable as a widget system as the Untangle server's dashboard. It's almost the same. You can move these around, rearrange them, turn them off if you need to. My favorite thing is you can do this. There we go. This is a Command Center. Like I said, this is all free when you have the Untangle NG complete package. It really adds the full bore value of Command Center because you're able to do things like create policies, sync them across different devices here from the cloud. This is how we do remote access now. If we have multiple devices, you see I have a few here that have that are offline, that have no licensing on them. But this one down here on the bottom, we'll get into Vandalay Industries #1. If I just click remote access, I could probably count to maybe 10 or 12, and I'll be in the dashboard of that device. That's a virtual machine running out in California. I'm working here in Denver by our Colorado office. So you can see this is going through my SSL proxy server. It's going to take me right to the dashboard because I have automatic login enabled, because anyone who logs into my Command Center has admin privileges by assumption. So that's why we also do those differentiated roles in Command Center. Maybe you have an accountant, a finance department person who needs to log in and see your invoices, but they certainly don't need access to a server. We can create them a user account, like I've created my buddy Steve here, and I could say, well, he's got access to this server, and I don't want him to have it, but he needs access to my billing. So now he has that. So I would just save this, and I probably should have told him before I did that. Anyway, his permissions are changed now, so I'll find out about that here later. But that's where we can do this kind of thing now. So that's been something we've wanted to do for a long time, is give people a little bit different permissions here, whether on the box or in some kind of centralized management console. So that's what we're doing with this users tab here. You may notice my Malwarebytes tab here. I also have this integrated with my Malwarebytes cloud account. If I click right there, it takes me right out to Malwarebytes, to my login. And if I want to, I can just jump straight into my dashboard and see all my devices and endpoints. It's a really, really cool integration because I can just jump over here to host and say, yeah, this one right here has Malwarebytes installed. You see the little logo on the right. So I wonder, you know, what that thing's doing on the web right now. I can just kind of look at the events. This is a really, really, really interesting level of visibility for our cloud. We've never had a level of visibility like this without remoting into a server. Even if I go over here and hit antivirus scan, I'm basically just initiating the endpoint scan. So we're still not pushing any endpoint client. You know, we're not installing any software from the cloud here. It's just integrated with Malwarebytes Enterprise now. So if I want to, I can just click yes on this and successfully requested A/B scan. So it's starting the A/B scan on this host now, on this endpoint. That'll probably take a minute, so we're not going to sit around and wait on that. But this is Command Center, and this is the policy creation portion of it when you need to create like a template configuration. If you have a lot of different sites that could use the same configuration, you can actually create a template from one of your devices. I want this one's configuration to go to these boxes, and I want them to always stay in sync when I change box A. So it's a very handy tool. It's really interesting that it's free. You can have basically a turnkey type of configuration now. So this is huge for multi-site deployments or MSPs. anyone who can keep kind of the same configuration across a site or 2 or 3 or 4. It's a really handy tool. Let's see. I was going to jump back out. Shana, are there any other questions we should answer real quick?
Let's see, you covered adding users to Command Center. There was a question if you wanted to just briefly go to the dashboard. Someone was asking how they can see the number of devices that are being filtered through Untangle and how many are being bypassed.
Okay. The easiest way to do that, you can see currently active right here. So these are the boxes we're seeing that are coming through. So that widget always lives there. If you want kind of an actual visualization of what's bypassed and what's filtered, I usually go to the sessions viewer here. You'll see this field here called bypass. False means it's being filtered. True means it's being bypassed. So I actually had this phone call or trouble ticket a day or 2 ago. Someone just wanted to see the bypassed traffic on their network. So other than going to the bypass rules, to see what's in a rule, you just type in, true right here. And then all your bypass traffic will pop up when it needs to. So there they are. So this device is bypassed, this one's bypassed, this one's bypassed, etc. So that means you won't see a lot of data when they start going through these reports over here because they're not hitting them. Like I was saying earlier, that's what the bypass rule does. It just puts a ceiling on them. So bypass rules don't, cast a device out into the wild. They're still behind an untangle. They're still protected behind a firewall. They're still controllable. Traffic is shapeable. But we just don't do the layer 7 filtering and charge you for that. You can still see all the traffic, everything here. I hope that answered that question.
Yes, I think so. I think that's about all the questions. I mean, there are some questions coming in, but they're being answered by our team members. So I think we're good right now.
Okay, so I'm going to jump back over here to the deck here real quick, and we'll just get wrapped up. So we did a Q&A. So I've mentioned most of these key differentiators, either in passing or officially throughout the webinar. The ease of use and deployment, I feel can't be overstated. Especially when we talk about really small organizations that don't have the manpower or the time to do a complete network overhaul. Sometimes you don't have to replace your router. You can just drop Untangle in bridge mode behind that, and we're your content filter and your traffic shaper and your antivirus. This software was built specifically for SMBs and government deployments that are smaller. So it's enterprise level security, but basically consumer level simplicity, as you saw with all those graphical UIs. It's all browser based, fully responsive admin, and then honestly the best reporting in the industry. I'm biased, but I can't find any that looks like that. One of the things that I should mention when we talk about being browser based is this is Linux. It's the Debian Linux, but you have not seen a command line interface yet, right? And we don't do that. So you don't have to know Linux command line to be a good, Untangle administrator. So I think that's a really, really important differentiator too. It does have pretty smart default settings. Like I said, if you do our recommended apps, that's tuned to real world use cases. That's why you see the checkboxes for anonymizers and pornography by default. Our policy management, offers a global top-down approach as opposed to the kind of complex bottom-up rules system that a lot of others use. And we do have, like I just showed you, some of the most comprehensive bandwidth shaping capabilities, like quotas, penalty boxes. If you need to say this device only gets 200 megabytes of data a day, and then we throttle it to death when it crosses that, we can do that there in bandwidth control. And also we offer automatic seamless upgrades, so it's always up to date. If you allow for automatic updates, you can schedule those. We don't charge for software updates, upgrades. All these vendor databases update multiple times a day on the back end. None of that has to be touched. It is very flexible. It's very cost competitive. Like I said, it's a software-based solution, so it can be deployed on your hardware, our hardware, or as a virtual machine or in the cloud. It's basically what we call freemium software. Like I said, you download it. That's everything we offer for 14 days. Then at the end of that, when the apps expire, you're left with the free apps, or you can pay for the licensed apps. And then we offer that cloud-based centralized management and the on-box reports. None of that's extra charge. You don't need any extra hardware. Reporting alone used to be kind of a separate box. Centralized management, SSL inspection, virus blocking, those used to all be separate boxes. They don't necessarily have to be. So like I said, It's a really cool solution. It's really modular. With our public sector discount on that complete package, we offer really, really big discounts to government sector for the software. So I think it's a really cool solution if this is your first time looking into Untangle. As Shannon said, if we didn't get to your question, or if you have a big question, let us know at sales or support or pre-sales at untangle.com. We are getting a little bit of recognition. This is Untangle's 16th year of existence, actually. We're starting to be a little bit well known, but we are still a small business ourselves. We're around 50 employees worldwide. But you can see we're winning some pretty cool awards. The one I really think is the most important, to be perfectly honest, is the one on the far top right, the Gold Stevie Award for customer service technical support. Our technical support team here in Colorado is great. We don't do tiered support. We don't outsource support. Anyone you call can help you no matter what. We're also pretty popular on Spiceworks. You can see there they think we're a pretty good software firewall, content filtering appliance. And our user forums are actually really, really active and really helpful. It's forums.untangle.com. If you jump on and have a quick question, honestly, I don't think I could guarantee it, but I bet the person that answers is either the founder of the company or the director of QA or one of our power user resellers. So it's a really, really helpful, useful community. Then obviously there's some customer quotes, case studies, things like that on our resources page on the Untangle website. If you want to just go take a quick peek at what other government sector, public sector customers talk about Untangle, they say some pretty good things in general. We work with a lot of different environments, from little sheriff's offices to huge libraries to pretty big government offices. So don't be shy about asking questions. Like I said, if you have any others, just let us know. And if you do qualify for the public sector complete package, that's, like I said, a pretty big discount. You can see it there in writing. It's half off. It's a significant discount, yes. So you can try it, honestly, before you buy. If you have a piece of hardware or a virtual machine, that's a great way to trial Untangle. Just install us in bridge mode, and you don't even have to change anyone's gateway address. And then if you have any questions, just contact us at sales@untangle.com to get started. And now, Shannon, do you want to pick a winner?
Do I get a drum roll?
Yeah, that was my drum roll.
Alrighty, so just randomly looking through, and Nathaniel Steele, congratulations, you have won.
Right.
So look out for my email and please respond to that, and you'll get that Amazon gift card. So thanks for attending.
Solid. All right.
Thank you everyone for joining us today. We hope you enjoyed the presentation, and if you do have any questions further on, please don't hesitate to contact us, whether it be an email or on the forums. We're here to help, whether you are an existing customer or someone that's looking at us to help with their network security. So please think of us next time, and thank you, Chad, for the great demo, and we hope to see you next time. Thanks, everyone.